Let me ask you, is the state of Maine doing enough to care for the wounded and/or disabled veterans from our state as they return to civilian life after duty in Iraq and/or Afghanistan?
The state of Maine, with the various hospitals like Togus and the outpatient facilities like University of New England has an outpatient program for veterans. They do provide good services. Is it enough? I think that, I think we do an adequate job. I think that we are doing a good job. As I say, I do work closely with the Maine National Guard, and as far as the Guard is concerned, I've not heard any complaints from the Guard as to whether we are doing a poor job, but I believe that we are doing an adequate job.
Okay, thank you, Don. Linda, how do you feel about what Maine is doing to care for the wounded or disabled veterans after they return from duty in Afghanistan and Iraq? Are we doing enough?
Thank you very much, Roy. I serve on the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee, so we deal with a lot of this as far as legislation that's coming in. And I've also had the opportunity to tour through different facilities up in Togus to take part in different events that they've had up there. My feeling is that although we may be doing an adequate job now, we need to do a lot more. We see the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder every day in the paper. That is affecting many, many people. We need to provide these services for the returning veterans that are coming in. It's hit very close to home in many ways, just in Augusta with people that we have known. So I think that we need to do a lot more on this. That's one of the reasons that I was actually involved in the Women's Veterans Plaque, which was a plaque that I put up and did the fundraising in the State House. One of the things that has happened is that many women veterans aren't receiving the services that they really need. When they rebuilt the VA hospital up in Togus, it was amazing. It was for the first time, I was up there last year, that they actually had a special women's room for screenings. They never used to have a screen that went around when you were doing exams. There are differences between issues between men and women, and lots of times when they were lumped in together, the women were falling through the cracks. So with this outreach program that was started with the plaque and trying to reach these veterans, we're trying to put services that these people need. And I think there's a lot more to do with the post-traumatic stress syndrome, with the women veterans. And that's why it's been so important. I'll be Monday at the Veterans Center in Scarborough doing another silver coin ceremony for women veterans. I have 2 coming from Saco. I've gone all over the southern part of the state presenting these silver coins to women. And I think we need to do a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Don, what unique qualifications do you have that would persuade voters to choose you?
My proven track record in 8 years up at the State House, my leadership in the Taxation Committee, my leadership in Opega with the Maine Turnpike Authority review, the issues that have come before us on the insurance committee. When I first went up there, I made it my goal to provide a program for the individual market, for individual health insurance market for people in the state of Maine. In the state of Maine, there is only one carrier that's providing health insurance in the individual market, and that's Anthem. And coming from the insurance industry, I realized that something had to be done. I submitted a bill, and I made that my mission to provide another carrier or more carriers for the individual market. I was not successful in my first term. I resubmitted the bill in my second term, and tried it again. I will persevere. I have tenacity. I work hard, and I will get things done, and that's my goal. When they send me back to the Senate, when I go back to the Senate, and my constituents ask me to do something, I will persevere till I get it done.
Thank you, Don. Linda, what unique qualifications do you have that would persuade voters to elect you?
One of the unique things I think that sets me aside from any other representative up there is my attention to detail. I make it a mission to read all of the bills. Anything that has a divided report on it, I have roll calls come to my seat. I take every roll call, I analyze it. I'm prepared when I go in. I do my homework. I bring a bookcase to my committee rooms. I take my files. I'm probably the only one up there that has all of her files in a bookcase in an organization. When the compendium comes out for the state of Maine, I'm the first one in the fiscal office picking up my copy. I remember my freshman year when they had given us the budget, and they said, oh, this is your homework for tomorrow, read it, and if you have any amendments, come in. I ran into another colleague, Tom Watson, and I asked him a question, and he looked at my budget, and it was about this thick, and it was all tabbed and redlined, and he said, oh my God, did you read that? And I said, yes, I did. And he goes, nobody reads the budget, just the Appropriations Committee reads the budget. And I said, well, I read it. I thought we were supposed to read it. He goes, well, yeah. He goes, but nobody reads it, Linda. And so I had questions on it. And I think that's what makes me extremely unique up there, is that when something comes through on my desk, especially in those last days, I read it and I will stand up and I will ask a question on it. I don't take anything for granted. I'm not a rubber stamp at all. I don't take anybody's word. Just coming out of a committee, if there's a divided report and there's one person against it, I'm going to go talk to that person and I'm going to find out why were you on the other side? What are the compelling reasons for that? And I think that's what makes me extremely unique up there. I'm always with my files, rolling them along. On LD1 committee, we didn't even have a committee room. I had a rolling file cabinet, and I brought them to meeting to meeting to meeting wherever we went. And inevitably, the chair would ask me, Linda, do you have a copy of this? Can you pull something out? And I think that makes me extremely unique is my attention to detail and my homework and being able to speak on any one of the issues that come up and have the knowledge and the background to speak on it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We are now at the point, we're into this about 30 minutes now, and we're at the point where I'd like to open the floor up to questions from the audience. If there's anyone that would like to pose a question to either candidate, please come up to the forum. Please come up to the podium.
Okay, for everybody, I'm Stan Marsden. I'm a resident here in Saco, and I appreciate very much the two of you taking the time to discuss a number of issues with us to inform us as voters. The question I have pertains to Maine state government, the way it operates and the way it figures out costs and what it does about it. We came up against a crisis here with DHHS here just a short while ago, and we're still not really out of it. And the problem I have with this, all of the solutions is it seems that we're in a game of which programs are going to be cut, which services are not going to be provided, and who's going to be the one that's going to be hurt. My question is, why does it have to be that way? Why aren't we looking at the way we're delivering services, looking for ways to be more efficient and more effective at the same time? And thus, we are not always cutting programs, but maybe looking for ways to make them better. Is there something about what we have in Maine that we're not able to do this, or is that a question that people aren't asking?
Either or?
Linda, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much for that question, Stan. In Maine state government, the efficiencies that you talked about on the Department of Health and Human Services, the crisis there, I know I gave an interview back in January with TATV on it, and I was asked the question on DHHS about the crisis that's going on. This was before anything came out about the shortage or the people being paid. This was way back in January, and I said the biggest crisis in DHHS is a computer crisis. I was fortunate enough to be a member of the Appropriations Committee, and when I came on the committee, there was a huge crisis in DHHS on computers. We had spent over $27 million on working through computer crises, plus tens of million dollars in government money that we had spent on it. We had weekly reports trying to get back money that was overpaid to people. And it was all told to us because we didn't run a parallel system when we did it. Well, 2 years ago, we started with a new computer system. Again, they didn't run a parallel system on it. I think one of the biggest problems with state government is that we are constantly in motion. There are too many bills that are going in. We need to change the way we do the budget. You cannot expect a new governor to come in and be sworn into office in December and have a budget on our desks in January, where our budget cycle is totally backwards. We've had numerous bills submitted on this. The budget should be done in the off year. It's ridiculous. We have bills that we go through, 2,000 bills. We run them through a committee. We have a public hearing. We have work session, work session, work session. It goes through the House. It goes through the Senate. If it has a fiscal note on it, it goes down to the Appropriations Committee, and then it's killed. We've done all of that work for nothing. Why not do your bills the first part of the session, find out what you have on the table, then have the Appropriations Committee do the budget, and find out then what you can actually put in for the bills. It's totally backwards the way they're doing it. For the first 6 years I was up there, Richard Sieber, a Republican, put in a bill every single year to do an outside audit. And the bill actually was killed by the Democrats because we have an audit department up there. This year he had the bill in again. They never expected to be in the majority. And when the bill came through, I said, Richard, why aren't we debating this? And he said, no, I'm going to let it die. Sometimes people talk the talk, and when it came right down to it, we didn't do it. We need to stop for a while. We need to stop these 2,000 bills that are in. We need to find out where we are in state government. We've done 7 supplemental budgets since we've been there, since last session. The Revenue Forecasting Committee, one day we're up, the next day we're down. We need to slow down. We need to find out where we are before we start cutting programs and then find out a month from now we have money for it, or that we've allocated and we've put in a new program when we don't have money for it. We need to slow down. We need to change the way that the government is doing the budget in Augusta, because it is not working.
Thank you, Linda. Don, what is your opinion on looking for ways to be more efficient?
Thank you. I said earlier when we were doing this interview in Old Orchard Beach, we talked about term limits, and term limits, we do these 2-year term limit cycles. The 2-year term limit cycles just is not efficient. We go up there for 2 years and we cycle in for 2, and then we have to go out and campaign and we cycle back in. If you like what we're doing, you re-elect us, we come back. If you don't like what we're doing, you hire somebody else to go back up there who doesn't know anything, and then their learning cycle is going to be like 4 years before they understand what they're doing. So perhaps what we should do is make it a 4-year term. So that's maybe one suggestion. Linda mentioned something about this computer problem. My committee, OPEGA, is looking at what truly happened here. Who knew what, when? Did the commissioner know when she was before appropriations, when they were trying to draft the budget? Did she actually know what was going on and perhaps failed to tell the Appropriations Committee? Or actually did the governor know and told the commissioner not to say anything? So my committee is looking at that, and we're meeting in a couple weeks to talk about that. The other thing is the efficiencies, Stan. You have appropriations, who does the budgets, and then we have this taxation committee, which is revenues and their expenditures. Some states they put the two together, and they call it a Ways and Means Committee. That might be a more efficient way to do this, not rather than have the two of them separate, combine them, so you have revenues and expenditures together talking to one another, because we sit downstairs and we're talking about tax revenues, and should we send this upstairs with a fiscal note on it, and would they accept this or not? We should explore that. Put the taxation in the Appropriations Committee together. That would be an efficiency. The other thing is about HHS. The state of New Hampshire, real quick, I'll tell you about this. The state of New Hampshire really doesn't fund their Health and Human Services Department very, very, very little. They rely on nonprofits to pick up these safety nets for their most vulnerable. They are very, very, they don't provide the safety nets for people that we historically provide for, and they rely on nonprofits. And I'm wondering if that's not what this administration is trying to do.
Okay, good. Thank you, Don.